The auction, the alien slave market, was loud and cruel. Voices mixed with the sound of chains, strange smells of burning food, and the sharp laugh of merchants filled the dirty square. It was not a place for hope. It was a place for broken lives. In the middle of the crowd, a thin figure was pushed onto a small metal stage. She was an alien girl, small, her skin pale and marked with scars. Her clothes were torn, her eyes wide with fear, and her thin hands shook as the heavy chains pulled at her wrists. She looked like she had no strength left, like she had already been defeated long before this night. The auctioneer, a fat alien with gold teeth, raised his voice. Next item, he shouted, his voice echoing. This one is cheap, this one is weak, this one is broken. But maybe someone wants her. Starting bid. 2 credits. The crowd laughed. Some threw old food at her feet. Some spat on the ground. Voices rose. Not worth it. Too weak. She will die before sunrise. I would not take her even for free. The alien girl lowered her head, shame burning in her chest. She was used to the laughter, used to the pain, but still each word cut deeper than the chains. The auctioneer banged the metal stand with his stick. 2 credits, who will pay 2 credits? He asked. Silence answered him. No one lifted a hand, no one wanted her. The girl felt her knees weaken, her body trembled as the cold air bit her skin. She thought maybe this was the end. Maybe they would throw her away like garbage. Her heart whispered that she had no value, no place, no future. Then in the back of the crowd, a shadow moved. A tall figure stepped forward, a human. Humans were rare here, very rare, and when people noticed him, the crowd grew quiet. His face was tired, his eyes sharp but calm, his clothes old and simple. He stood like someone used to loneliness, someone who carried heavy memories on his shoulders. The auctioneer looked at him and laughed. You human, do you want this broken thing? For 2 credits, why waste money? The human did not answer. He raised his hand slowly, silently. The crowd gasped. They could not believe it. A human was buying the worthless alien girl for 2 credits. Mocking voices filled the air again. Crazy human. She is useless. What will he do with her? She cannot work. She cannot fight. But the human ignored them. He walked forward, paid the small coins, and took the chain from the auctioneer's hands. His grip was steady. His eyes never looked down on the girl. The alien girl lifted her head just a little. She saw the human for the first time. There was no laughter in his eyes, no anger, no cruelty. Only something she could not understand. Maybe pity, maybe something more. The auctioneer waved his hands. Sold. Sold to the human for 2 credits, he shouted, still laughing. Take her. She will not last a week. The crowd roared with noise again. But the human did not care. He turned and began to walk away. The girl forced to follow by the chain. Her heart was beating fast. Not with hope, but with fear. What did this human want? Why did he buy her? She had been beaten, starved, forgotten, and now bought for the price of rotten bread. As they left the market, the sound of laughter and insults grew smaller. The night air was cold and heavy. Stars shining above the dirty town. The human did not speak. His steps were slow but strong. The girl followed, her mind spinning with questions. Every step felt like walking into a mystery. She remembered the eyes of the crowd, full of hate and mockery. She remembered the auctioneer's cruel voice. But most of all, she remembered the human silence. Why did he not speak? Why did he not laugh? Why did he not hurt her? She could not understand. For 2 credits, she had been bought. For 2 credits, her life had changed. But was this a new prison or something else? Her hands trembled as she looked at the back of the human walking ahead. And deep inside, under the fear and pain, a small spark lit in her chest. A spark of something she had never felt before. Not hope yet, but a question. Could this human be different? The night grew darker. The road ahead was empty and long. The alien girl did not know that this walk, this silent walk behind a lonely human, was the first step into a story no one in the galaxy would ever forget. Asterisk, the road out of the slave market was quiet. The noise of the crowd was gone. But the words still echoed inside the alien girl's mind. Useless, broken, trash. Each insult replayed like a wound that refused to close. The human walked in front, steady and calm. He did not look back at her, did not speak, did not explain. His silence was heavier than chains. The alien girl wanted to ask why he had bought her, but fear locked her mouth. She had learned long ago that questions often brought pain. They reached a dusty transport parked at the edge of town. The human opened the door, removed the chain from her wrists, and simply said one word, "Inside." His voice was deep. Not cruel, not gentle, only firm. She obeyed, sitting in the corner, her body shaking as if waiting for punishment. The transport lifted from the ground, engines humming, through the small window. She saw the dirty market fading behind them. It felt strange, almost unreal, like she had stepped out of one nightmare into another. The human sat in the pilot seat, his eyes fixed on the endless stars ahead. He flew with the focus of someone who had done this for years, his hands steady, his movements careful. The silence stretched between them. Finally, the girl whispered, barely a sound. "Why?" The human's head tilted slightly, but he did not answer. He pressed a button, adjusted the controls, and the stars outside blurred into faster streams of light. The girl pulled her knees close to her chest, heart beating fast. If he was not going to beat her, if he was not going to sell her, then what did he want? Hours passed. The hum of the engines was the only sound. The girl's eyes grew heavy, but she forced herself to stay awake. Slaves who slept without permission often woke to pain. Yet, as she watched the human, she noticed something strange. On his wrist was a scar, shaped like burned metal, across his shoulder. The fabric of his jacket was torn, and beneath it, she glimpsed the mark of an old wound. This human was not soft, he was not weak, he carried battle scars. The transport landed in a small valley, hidden between tall stone cliffs. There was no city, no neighbors, no voices, only silence. A lonely house stood there, built from rough metal and old stone. It looked tired, like it had stood alone for many years. The human stepped out first, then motioned for her to follow. She hesitated, then obeyed, her bare feet touching the cold ground. Inside, the house was simple. One chair, one table, a shelf with a few old books, a cooking pot on a cold fire, a bed in the corner. It was not rich, but it was clean. The human placed a small plate of food on the table. "Eat," he said. The girl stared at it, not trusting, not moving, her stomach twisted with hunger. But she remembered the tricks of cruel masters. Sometimes they gave food just to laugh when she choked. Sometimes they offered kindness only to strike harder after. The human did not force her. He walked away, sat in the chair, and closed his eyes. As if resting, the girl waited, her hands shaking, then slowly reached for the food. She ate carefully, each bite small, ready for punishment. But none came. For the first time in her life, she ate in peace. Night fell, stars shining through the small window. The human placed a blanket on the floor. "You can sleep there," he said simply. The girl froze, confused. No chains, no locked doors, just a blanket. She lay down slowly, but she did not sleep. She kept her eyes on the human, who now sat quietly by the window, staring at the night sky. He looked like someone searching for something far away, or someone remembering a place he had lost. In the silence, the girl felt something strange. Not safety, not yet, but an absence of cruelty. And in her broken heart, that absence felt louder than any kindness she had ever known. She closed her eyes but kept her body tense. Sleep finally took her, filled with half-dreams of laughter, chains, and a human's quiet face. The human did not sleep. He sat still through the night, the scars on his arms catching the faint light. His eyes never left the stars. He whispered words so quiet the girl could not hear. Names, old names, ghosts from a past he never shared. This house was lonely. His life was lonely. And now, in the middle of that loneliness, he had brought home a beaten alien child for 2 credits. No one knew why, not even her, but the universe was about to learn. The small house was silent. The alien girl sat on the floor, Blanket wrapped around her thin body, but she did not feel warm. The human had told her to rest. Nothing more, and then left her alone. He moved into the next room, leaving the door open, as if to show he had no reason to fear her, but fear was all she knew. Her eyes kept darting to the walls, the door, the shadows. She expected the whip, the shout, the sudden hand grabbing her by the hair. It always came. It always came. Her body shook as if she was still chained, even though the chains were gone. The human's footsteps were heavy in the other room, slow and steady. He was not drunk like many masters she had seen before. He was not cruel in his tone, but silence itself was a weapon. Silence meant waiting for something bad, something sharp. Her heart refused to believe this human was different. She pressed her face into the blanket, her tears soaking into the rough fabric. No one was watching, but still she cried quietly, afraid of making noise. Her chest hurt with the memory of the market, the laughter, the auctioneer's voice. She thought of her price, 2 credits, less than a broken tool, less than a meal. Her worth was nothing, and yet, this man had taken her in the other room. The human sat at his table, staring at an old picture frame. The glass was cracked, the photo inside faded. It showed 3 figures, but only one face was clear as own. Younger, with eyes full of life, the other 2 were blurred. But his gaze lingered on them with pain. He touched the frame with his scarred fingers, then set it down. For him, the night was also heavy. The house had been empty for years now. For the first time, someone else breathed under its roof. A stranger, broken and small. Yet her presence stirred something long buried. The girl tried to close her eyes, but every creak of the house made her flinch. At one point, she thought she heard him moving closer. Her whole body tensed. She prepared for the blow. But instead, the sound faded. He had only gone to place wood in the small fire pit. Warmth filled the room slowly. Gently, it confused her even more. Finally, she dared to whisper into the darkness, "Why? Why me?" Her voice cracked, so soft she thought he would not hear. For a long time there was no reply, only the sound of fire crackling. Then his voice came from the next room, low and calm. No one should be left like trash. Her heart jumped at his words, not because they were kind, but because they were strange. Masters never spoke like that. To them, slaves were things, not people. She pulled the blanket tighter, not knowing if she should believe him. Her body still shook. Her mind still whispered, "It is a trick. It must be a trick." The human rose and walked past her, his steps slow. He placed a cup of water beside her, then walked away again without a word. The girl stared at it for a long time. It was clean water. Nothing added, nothing poisoned. Her throat burned with thirst. But she drank in tiny sips, waiting for the laugh. The strike, still, nothing came. The human did not even look at her. Later, when the fire was low, he rolled out his own blanket near the door, not close enough to frighten her, but near enough to guard the room. The girl realized something then. He was not watching her like a master. He was watching the house like a soldier, like a man who expected danger even in his own home. Sleep came slowly to her broken body. But in the thin edge of dreams, she remembered his words again. No one should be left like trash, they echoed inside her, clashing with years of pain. Was he lying? Was he mad? Or was he truly different? The night stretched long. She dreamed of chains, but also of stars, and somewhere, hidden in the shadows of that lonely house, 2 lives, one human and one alien child, began to turn toward something neither of them understood yet. Not trust, not hope, not family, not yet, but the first spark, tiny and fragile, was there, waiting for the dawn. Asterisk. The next morning came with soft light slipping through the cracks of the lonely house. The alien girl woke suddenly, her body tense, ready for orders, ready for pain. But there was no shouting, no whip, only the quiet sound of cooking. The smell of warm bread and boiling water drifted into the room. It was strange, it was wrong, she thought. Slaves were not given warm food, not given rest. She sat up, her blanket clutched in her small hands. Her eyes searched for the human. He was at the table, turning bread slowly over a pan. He did not look at her, did not chain her, did not command her. He only said, "Eat when you are ready." The words confused her. Permission, not order. She stayed frozen, too afraid to move. But her stomach betrayed her with a loud growl. The human placed bread and a small cup of tea on the table, then walked away to check something outside. No tricks, no laughter, just food left for her. Her hands shook as she picked up the bread. The taste was simple, soft, but it made her eyes sting. Tears rolled down her face as she ate, not because of pain, but because kindness felt like pain to her broken heart. She whispered to herself, "Why?" But no answer came. That day passed in quiet tasks. The human worked outside, repairing metal panels, cutting wood, cleaning weapons. The girl watched from the doorway. She noticed the way he moved, strong, practiced, careful, like a soldier who had fought too many battles. Sometimes he winced, his old scars pulling at his skin. He never asked her to help, but she tried once, lifting a small tool. He looked at her, his gaze steady. "You don't have to," he said. But she did not put the tool down. Her hands shook, but she held it out. He accepted it without a word, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of respect in his eyes. At night, he showed her a small book. It was filled with human letters, simple words. He tapped a word and said it slowly, "Water," then pointed at the cup she drank from. The girl stared, not understanding at first. But slowly she repeated, "Water," her voice weak but clear. He nodded, his face still calm, but his eyes softer than before. Each night after, he taught her a word: food, fire, star, home. Her broken tongue shaped them with effort. And each time he nodded, never mocking, never harsh. It was strange, it was frightening, but with each word, she felt less like trash and more like something alive. Yet, trust did not come easy. Sometimes when he walked near, she still flinched, sometimes in the dark. Nightmares dragged her back to chains and laughter. She would wake with a scream, her body shaking. The human never touched her, never shouted. He only sat near the fire until she calmed, his silence stronger than any promise. One night, as she sat by the window, she whispered to him, "Why do you not hurt me?" The human looked at her, long and quiet. His reply was simple, "Because you are not mine to hurt." The words burned inside her. Not his, not property, not slave. She held onto those words like a fragile treasure. Even though her mind still doubted, her heart wanted to believe. Days turned into weeks. The girl grew stronger, her steps steadier, her eyes brighter. She still carried scars, but now she also carried words. She learned to laugh once, a small sound, broken but real. The human did not laugh with her, but she saw the corner of his mouth lift. Just a little, but in the shadows whispers spread. The town near the slave market had not forgotten. A human had bought a worthless alien for 2 credits. Bandits wondered if he had found something rare. Hunters wondered if the girl carried secrets. Trouble was moving quietly, step by step, toward the lonely valley. The girl did not know this yet. For her, each day was a battle between fear and trust. For him, each day was a fight to keep the ghosts of his past from swallowing the present. Together, in silence and in slow words, they began to build something fragile. Not yet family, not yet safe, but enough to make both of them wonder if tomorrow could be different. The valley was quiet, too quiet. Each day passed with the sound of tools, fire, and the slow rhythm of learning. The alien girl began to smile sometimes, began to use the human words she had learned. She thought maybe life could stay like this. Safe, calm, almost normal, but danger was already moving. Unseen, like a shadow before a storm. In the town near the slave market, people still remembered the human. They remembered how he had lifted his hand, bought the useless alien, and walked away without fear. At first, they had laughed, but laughter turned to whispers, whispers turned to questions. Why would a human waste coins on trash? Maybe she is not trash, maybe she is rare, valuable. Bandits heard these whispers, hunters too, and greed grew inside them. One night in a smoky bar, a group of rough aliens sat together. They drank and argued, their voices low. "The human has her," one said, his eye narrow. "Then we take her," another replied. "No one will stop us. No one cares for a lonely human in the cliffs." They raised their cups with cruel smiles. Their plan was simple. Wait, watch, then strike. Back in the valley, the human was not blind. He knew how whispers traveled. He had lived long enough to sense danger before it arrived. At night, he checked the old rifles, cleaned the knives, tested the doors. The alien girl watched him, her head full of questions she dared not ask. Why did he have so many weapons? Why did he move like a soldier? Who was he before? She saw him studying the stars sometimes, his eyes hard, his face carved by memory. She wanted to ask about his past, but the words died in her throat. Still, she felt the weight of something unspoken between them, like a shadow that belonged not just to her, but to him as well. The days grew heavier, birds flew less near the valley. Dogs in the town barked at night, sensing things humans ignored. The girl began to dream of chains again, but now the chains in her dreams were not only hers. Sometimes she saw the human chained too, fighting against invisible hands. One evening, as the sun bled red across the cliffs, she asked him quietly, "Are they coming?" The human looked at her for a long time, then answered with a single word, "Yes." Her heart froze. She wanted to ask who, why, how many, but his silence told her more than words could. Danger was close, closer than she had imagined. That night, he gave her a small knife. Her hands trembled as she took it. "I cannot," she whispered. "You must," he replied, his eyes sharp. He showed her how to hold it, how to stand, how to strike if needed. His voice was calm, but his movements were fast. Practiced, the girl realized then. This man was no farmer, no wanderer. He had been something else, something deadly. Fear and trust battled in her chest. She did not want to fight. She did not want to bleed again. But the way he placed the knife in her hand was not an order. It was a choice. And in that choice, she felt something she had never been given before: respect. The air in the valley grew tense. Every sound of the wind felt like footsteps. Every rustle of trees felt like breathing. The girl clutched the knife at night, her eyes wide. The human slept little, his rifle always near. Far away, in the town, the bandits gathered. They sharpened blades, loaded guns, planned routes. They spoke of the human with hatred and greed. "Tomorrow night," their leader growled. "Tomorrow night, we take the girl. And we take whatever else the human hides." Their laughter was cold, filled with cruelty. The storm was ready to break. Back in the lonely house, the girl sat by the fire, staring into the flames. She thought of her old life, of chains and hunger. She thought of the human, silent and scarred, yet different from all others. And she thought of tomorrow. Would she still breathe when the sun rose again? Would he? The night deepened, stars burning above the cliffs. The human whispered to himself, names from his past, promises long forgotten. The girl did not understand the words, but she felt the weight of them. She pulled the blanket tight and closed her eyes, and in the silence of the valley, both knew the same truth. Danger was not coming. Danger was already here. The valley slept under a black sky, stars sharp like broken glass, but the house did not sleep. The human sat near the door, rifle in his hands, his eyes fixed on the cliffs. The alien girl lay on the floor, clutching the small knife he had given her. Her heart beat so loud she thought it might betray them. The night broke with a sound, not wind, not animals, but boots. Boots crushing the dirt, slow, heavy, too many. The human whispered one word, "Stay." Then he rose, calm but fast, like a shadow ready for war. The first bandit crept through the trees, his weapon gleaming. Another followed, then more. Their whispers were cruel, their steps filled with greed. "Quiet," one said. "Kill the human. Take the girl." The girl's breath froze, her hands shaking on the knife. She wanted to scream, but fear locked her throat. The human moved before they could. The silence exploded with a shot. One bandit fell, his cry tearing through the night. The valley woke with violence. Blades flashed, guns roared. Shadows rushed toward the lonely house. The girl crouched in the corner, her knife clutched tight, her eyes wide as she saw the human change. This was not the quiet man who baked bread and taught her words. This was a soldier, his body moving with deadly memory. He fought with no wasted motion, every shot precise, every strike final. His scars were no longer hidden. They were alive in his strength. The bandits shouted, firing into the walls, breaking the door. Smoke filled the room. Dust stung her eyes. The girl coughed, her fear pulling her back to old chains, old pain. But then she saw him standing firm, protecting her, and something inside her shifted. This time she was not alone. A bandit broke through the window. Grabbing for her, she screamed, her knife flashing. It cut his arm, blood spilling. His roar filling the room. He raised his hand to strike. But before the blow landed, the human was there, one shot, and the bandit fell silent forever. "Stay close to me," he ordered, his voice sharp. She crawled near him, shaking, her knife still in her hand. The firelight flickered on his face. It was hard, fierce, but not cruel, not for her. Never for her. The fight raged. Outside, more bandits rushed down the cliffs, their torches burning, their shouts rising. The valley was no longer quiet. It was a battlefield. The human threw a grenade into the darkness, the blast echoing, flames tearing through the night. The girl covered her ears, her heart racing. But even through the terror, she saw something strange. The human did not fight for glory, not for anger. He fought with desperation, as if protecting her meant protecting something far older, far deeper inside him. Hours felt like minutes, minutes like years. Bodies fell, torches died, smoke drifted over the valley. At last, the final bandit fled into the cliffs, his screams fading into the night. Silence returned, heavy and broken. The girl trembled in the corner, knife still in her hand. Her body shook, her face pale. The human walked slowly to her, his rifle lowered, his steps heavy. He knelt, his voice calm again. "It's over." She looked at him, eyes wide with shock. This man was not just a human, not just lonely, not just quiet. He was a protector, a shield, a storm in human form. Her fear began to shift into something else, something stronger than fear, trust. She dropped the knife and fell into the blanket, sobbing, not from pain, but from release. For the first time in her life, someone had fought for her, not bought her, not used her, not sold her. Fought for her. The human sat by the fire, his rifle across his knees, his eyes still scanning the night. But when he looked at her, his face softened. "You are safe now," he said. The girl's tears slowed, her breath steadied, and though she could not say the word in his language yet, in her heart she whispered it. Family. The valley was quiet again, but the ground carried the marks of fire and blood, and the stars above watched in silence. The storm had passed, but more storms waited. Both of them knew it, and yet, for the first time, they faced tomorrow not alone, but together. The valley was quiet again. The smoke from the battle drifted slowly into the sky. The house stood scarred, walls cracked, windows shattered. But still standing, inside, the human sat with tired eyes, his rifle resting across his knees. The alien girl sat near the fire, her small hands still shaking, her knife forgotten on the floor. She stared at him in silence. Her heart was heavy with fear, but also with something new. She remembered the sound of the bandits shouting, the crash of weapons, the fire that lit the night. And she remembered him standing in front of her, not to hurt her, not to sell her, but to protect her. The memory burned bright inside her chest. The human's face was worn, scarred, his hands bloody from the fight. Yet when he looked at her, his eyes were steady. "You are safe now," he said again, his voice low. The words sank into her like water into dry earth. Safe, a word she had never known before. She touched her chest lightly, as if to check if her heart was still there. It was beating faster than ever, but no longer only from fear. For the first time, she felt like she belonged somewhere, even if it was only inside the walls of this broken house. The days after the attack were quiet. Together, they repaired the house. The human fixed the windows. reinforce the doors, patch the walls. The girl helped in small ways, carrying wood, holding tools, learning new words. She was still clumsy, still weak. But each day, her steps grew stronger. And each day, her laughter returned, faint at first, then brighter. The house that had been silent for years now echoed with life again. One evening, she stood outside under the stars. The air was cold, the sky wide and endless. She whispered a human word she had learned. Family. The sound was soft, almost broken, but real. The human heard her, his eyes meeting hers for the first time. He allowed himself a small smile, not forced, not hidden, but true. The girl's eyes filled with tears, but these were not the tears of chains. They were tears of something she could not name. Hope, trust, maybe even love. The scars on her skin would never vanish. But now she carried something stronger than scars. She carried belonging, but the human knew what she did not. The bandits who attacked were not the only danger. Whispers spread fast in the galaxy. A human with soldier skills, hiding in a valley, living with a rescued alien girl. That story would not stay small. Others would come slavers. Hunters, soldiers, maybe worse. The fight was not over. It had only begun. He sat by the fire that night, his mind heavy with old memories. He thought of his past, of battles fought, of comrades lost, of promises broken, and now, of this small alien child who looked at him with trust. He did not know if he could be the protector she needed, but he knew one thing: he would never let her be treated as trash again. The girl fell asleep near the fire, her face peaceful for the first time in years. The human placed his rifle beside the door and covered her with the blanket. He looked at her, and in the quiet of the night, he whispered, "You are not slave, you are not property, you are mine." As family, the words were carried into the darkness. The stars above shone brighter. As if listening, the valley was still, but far beyond the cliffs. Danger stirred again, for now they had won. For now they had each other, a lonely human, a broken alien child, and the fragile bond that turned into a family, a bond strong enough to challenge the galaxy itself.